Okay, welcome to another Orbiter 2010 video. And once again, we're going to be learning a bit about IMFD, how to use it, how to do useful things with it. In the previous few videos, we've gone from the Earth to the Moon. And in the last video, we learned how to we learned a basic method for using IMFD to go from the Moon back to the Earth. But there is a more sophisticated way to get back to the Earth, and it's quite a bit better if you want to specifically arrive so that you're already in plane with the target base, like Wide Awake International or Cape Canaveral, or really any base at all. So we're going to jump in here and we're going to learn how to use IMFD for that method. And of course, I've got Dimitri with me to help us learn that because, once again, I'm an IMFD newbie, so it wouldn't do us a lot of good if I tried to explain it. So let's jump in here to the flight deck of the Delta glider landed here at Brighton Beach. And once again, this is the default scenario that comes with Orbiter 2010. So if you want to follow along, you will have this scenario already installed. It's in the Delta glider subfolder, and I think it's just called Brighton Beach or landed at Brighton Beach, something like that. Okay, so here we are inside the flight deck, and Dimitri, what do we need to do?
Okay, hi everyone. First, we all need to open up IMFD as usual. Better open it up on the left side.
Okay.
Hit the menu button, and we are going to use the base approach program this time.
Just as a reminder, what was it that we used last time? Was it surface launch?
We went to the course program, and we used the planet approach in order to set up an approach to Earth, and then we use the launch and the orbit eject programs.
Oh, that's right. That's the one where we referenced the Earth as the major body and then set the Moon as the source, I believe. Or is that what we're doing here?
This is what we're doing here.
Okay.
But yeah, I think the Moon was auto-selected. I don't really remember. I'll have to go through the video myself. Sometimes you have to look at the page in front of you in order to remember exactly the procedure.
Yeah.
But in this case, we're going to use the base approach program, and yes, we're going to reference the Earth and select the Moon as our source.
Okay, so let's do that. Let's reference Earth and set the Moon as the source. So I'm guessing we're going to have to go to the other page to do that.
Yes.
Yeah, page. Oh, there it is, source. Okay.
Okay, now we can see the trajectory, the orbit of the Moon around the Earth. Here in the middle is the Earth. Now we need to select the target base, which is what we want to go to Cape Canaveral, Wide Awake. Where do you want to go?
Well, for the sake of perhaps ease of use, let's go ahead and target Wide Awake, and then we'll kind of explain why when we get to that point.
The truth is, the closer to the equator that the base is, the easier this method gets. But it's not 100%. Like probably all MFDs, sometimes there is one particular example where you cannot get it exactly right. And after all, this is free software. But we can go for whatever. We can try for Wide Awake and perhaps show Cape Canaveral in another example video after we explain the procedure.
Yeah, just to briefly kind of explain here. Sometimes when you do things in Orbiter, it becomes a matter of working with variables, and sometimes it can take 5, 6, maybe even 10 to 15 minutes of sitting there playing with those variables, going back and forth. And for a video like this, we would like to avoid that, but we don't want to, oversell this method either. So you might, in your example, when you get to using IMFD, you might try to target Cape Canaveral and find that it's not as quick or as easy. Well, that's just because it's a different base, it's at a different latitude. So just know that you might have to spend quite a bit of time working with the variables in some cases, and in other cases you might just get lucky for that particular day of the month of the lunar cycle for the flight, and you might be able to dial your variables in right away. So I think that explains it.
Yeah, exactly. That was a very good explanation. Okay, so let's go and target the base.
Okay, so to target the base, do we go target or do we go to the menu and then the options?
No, target over here, and you need to type in the name of the base.
Okay, wide wake international. Okay.
International. Something that you can do if you want is to go to the config file of the base and change the name to win, so you don't have to type all that every time you you need to go to the base.
I've thought about doing that. I
Uh,
wasn't entirely sure how to do it, but
every time I install the Wide Awake International, the first thing I do is to go and change the name of the base. And also there is another base, Pinemunde, something like that, that you cannot type it with a normal keyboard. I think it has a French E, I don't know how to call it. It's an E with an emphasis on it.
uh,
And I don't know how to type that in an English keyboard.
yeah.
Anyway, we have the base selected. Now we want to set the periapsis altitude.
Okay, so we'll go to page to get to the other variables here, and we'll go to, let's see, altitude here. And
Yes.
is this a case where we want to set that at 500 again, or do we want to go for the 65?
This time we want to be accurate, so we're going to go for the 65, 60 kilometers, somewhere around there.
Okay, so this time we're using the preferred altitude. We're not fudging it, like we did in the other method where
Yes.
we estimated high.
What we are doing right now is trying to get a guideline from IMFD in order to get us to the correct orbit around the moon. And then we are going to set up the burn to Earth as a maneuver in order to arrive at Earth with a specific inclination so that we are lined up with the base, and also at a specific set of coordinates at Earth so that we are very close to the base that we want to land, so that we don't have to go around one whole orbit or half an orbit in order to land to the base that we want to. And this is what happened in the previous video, and even though we tried a little trick selecting the opposite side of the Earth as our target coordinates, it didn't work, and we had to go a full orbit around the Earth in order to land.
And this is
So
something that
this time we're
people.
going,
Go ahead.
yeah, this time we're going to avoid that, and we're going to try and make a very precise flight, and we're going to make a single burn from the moon, from lunar orbit, absolutely no corrections, and we're going to arrive exactly on our target.
Yeah, that's really cool. One burn, no corrections, no mid-course corrections. We're just going to do the burn at the moon, and fiddle with translation a little bit to get everything dialed in. Then you fast forward time all the way to the Earth, and you're right there on track. And that's something that I think people that use transects to get back to Earth will really appreciate, because if you've ever wanted to arrive at Earth where you are just 6,000 kilometers in front of the target base so that you can basically land right away, you know that that's essentially impossible to set up using transects. It just doesn't have the variables that you need. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue. Then what do we need to do after we set the altitude?
Okay, we're going to set our re-entry angle, the next variable. Usually, for this approach, it's around 5.5 degrees.
Just could you briefly explain what the re-entry angle even means?
Well, it's the slope of approach to the target base. It's the angle relative to, let's say, a tangent line relative to the Earth and the latitude, the coordinates that we are going to land, and the angle the spacecraft is coming in.
Okay.
You don't want it to be very low or negative, because that means that you will reach periapsis before you reach this point that you are trying to target, and you don't want it to be very steep because you will burn up in the atmosphere.
Okay, so, I'm a little fuzzy on that even here myself, but we'll just go ahead and move on, and maybe it'll become more clear as we move further into the flight. So after we set the re-entry angle, then we want the anticipation, I assume.
Yes, that's the anticipation, and basically it is how many degrees away from the from our target, our periapsis is going to be when we are going to hit the atmosphere, how many degrees away we are going to be from our target. And we want to set that to about 45 degrees.
Yeah, this one's easier for me to understand, and I can even give a little bit of an explanation here. So let's just, for example, look over here at Map MFD where we have Brighton Beach selected. You'll notice that it's right here, let's say whatever this line is, 40, or it's actually about 35 degrees. So the anticipation angle would be how far back this way you want to be. So each one of these squares is 30 degrees. So if we were 45 degrees back, we would be here plus an additional 15, so maybe about right there. Is that about right?
About one and a half.
About one and a half squares.
Square. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's set that to 45. And then we want to, what's the next step?
Now we're going to go to the hint variable and start adding there. You'll see the number of seconds, basically, it's the flight time, and start adding there until IMFD finds a solution.
And do we want that adjustment to be on 1, or do we want a higher adjustment for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
1 it's okay, because you will see it counts up many thousands of seconds each time.
Yeah, that's, I'm sure that's what...
That's 1/10 of a day.
Yeah. So we continue adding in until we get this data down here that now IMFD has some kind of a solution.
You can see that it's found a solution that gets you to Earth. This is re-entry time in 65,000 seconds, so that's less than a day. We can fly that if we want, but okay, we can go for a for a slightly slower. So you can cycle through the next, press more time in the flight time hint, and it will try and find the next solution.
If we use the solution, if I'm understanding this correctly, we would be doing a 5 kilometer burn back to the Earth, basically, 5.3 kilometer.
Not exactly, because this is the delta V that you need to get the moon. Like I said before, to get the spacecraft called Moon to this blue trajectory. In reality, we're going to be already in orbit around the moon, so that's going to be a little bit different.
Okay.
The burn that we're going to need to make.
But at any rate, we obviously want more time, so we're going to add in some more time on the hint and wait for this to update. And there it updated. This looks a little bit more reasonable.
Okay, this is slightly less than 2 days. You can see here the re-entry times 157,000 seconds.
Yeah, we probably want to go more than that even, because typical time back to Earth is, at least 3 days, I would assume.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about this is that you have options. You can, if you wanted for some reason to get back to Earth in less than a day, then okay, you could use the previous solution. If you want to get in slightly less than 2 days, you can use this solution. And if you want to get 3, 4, 10 days, 15 days, it will actually get you outside of the moon's orbit and then get you back inside. Every time for the selected time interval, interplanetary MFD will try and find the solution. Or it will not find. When you press another time, the hint over here, well, actually it keeps the same
yeah, it keeps
solution
the same previous solution.
Until you get to the next one. But for the first few times that you pressed hint, for example, for 8,000 seconds, it could not find the solution.
Right. Okay, so there it found another solution, and we're now, let's see, 86,400. So that looks to me about 4 days.
This one over here?
Yeah.
I think that's about 3 times 8. Yeah, that's about 3 days, slightly less than 3 days.
Yeah, you're right. My math sucks. Actually, it even says down here the MJD 52009. So yeah, that's less than 3 days.
You can look at it from there and the date on the upper right corner. So we can either use that, or we can go to the next one, which will probably maybe also be the minimum delta V solution.
Yeah, let's go forward a little bit more so we can have a lower delta V cost, just because I think, typically in orbiter, that's usually the goal, is to minimize fuel costs.
And some people use for this journey, and in order to get a very good, a very similar approach to what we're doing now, where we want to arrive on target and aligned with our target and close to it. And they use lunar transfer MFD for that. And I've tried it only once, but the problem is that it's only for Apollo style transfers, I think. I'm not 100% sure, so some of our viewers may correct me on that one. But I think that that MFD is only for Apollo style transfers, where you have approximately 3.5 days transit time. With IMFD, you can actually select the time interval that you want to arrive to Earth.
Yeah, and I think you're right about lunar transfer MFD because I've read the PDF that comes with it, and it does specifically state that it's for Apollo style only. If there's a way to use it other than that, I don't know. But yeah, with this MFD, you have more options.
Okay, so now we have a solution for that's about what, 4 days? Yeah, less than 4 days from right now where we're standing. And for now, that's all we need. We can switch on the left side where we are on the surface launch program, see the launch heading, and get into lunar orbit.
Okay, so still here on the left side, we want to bring up the surface launch program.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll go menu to go back one, and just a moment. I think it was course. No, oh wait, that's right. I'm still learning. It has its own option down there. It's surface launch, and then we need to. By default, I guess it selects the course program. Do we need to tell it that we want to use base approach?
Exactly, we're going to use the base approach this time. Because you can see no data available from the course program anyway.
Right, so here where it has course program underlined, it's currently connected to a program that doesn't have any data, so we want to press plus until we get to base approach, and now we can see that we have the information that we need. Okay, so with that, then we have everything we need to get up into orbit, is that correct?
Yes, we can see our heading. The heading is all that we need, and during the launch, we have to watch for the ejection inclination over here, how many degrees off plane we are. This is what we want to keep as close to zero as possible. And you can also see your orbit around the moon and the periapsis and apopsis altitude.
Sounds good. Okay, so similar to like in Transx, when you get your moon solution, you get a heading, but unfortunately with Transx, as soon as you lift up off the pad, you lose the heading. But here we...
Yes. There are many times where I forgot to write down the heading and I lifted off the pad with hover, and then I said, oops, what heading do I have to follow? And then I landed again so I could write down the heading.
Okay, so we have that here, so we're basically facing the right way. We just need to lift up and turn a couple degrees and then head out. So let's go ahead and do that. If you want, you can also, since coming back from the moon, you don't need that much fuel. You can use the scenario editor. This is completely optional. Go to the propellant and set it to about 1/3 and hit apply and then done. And what that will do, that will just simply make your journey back to Earth. It will make your trip up into lunar orbit go a little bit faster because you're moving much less mass.
Yes, you're much. You don't have that much mass here, so you have a lot more acceleration.
Yeah, and also what I like to do is the default projection here is ecliptic. I don't like that, so press PRG for self, and what that will do when you get up into orbit, it'll make that green line circle around the outer edge, as opposed to having sort of that tilted view, which is just really odd. So it helps perhaps to press that projection there. Okay, a little bit of hover to get up off the pad. G to raise the gear.
Translation, rotation.
Gonna rotate to about a little past 72. Full power on the main. We're gonna bring up surface on this side so we can watch our vertical acceleration. Get rid of all the hover. And we're gonna pitch up enough so that our vertical acceleration is 0. And then we can just kind of pitch down, and now we need to watch our inclination here, so we can yaw That's the wrong way. Yaw the other way to bring the inclination down. That's the EIN on the interplanetary MFD that I'm referring to there. And just bear with me while I get up into orbit. I do need to concentrate a little bit here. Yep, my vertical acceleration's coming down too much. And we got an apoapsis. Here in a second it'll be 20. Okay, there we go. We've got an apoapsis of about 20 kilometers. Managed to keep the relative inclination to 0. And now we are ready for the next step. We don't necessarily want to just warp time forward to apoapsis. Dimitri, do you want to explain a little bit about why that is?
Yes, exactly. Because there is a chance that we may need to make the ejection burn before we reach apoapsis. So we won't have to actually circularize the orbit. But we can check that by hitting the menu button. Anyway, we're done with the surface launch program. And hit the menu button and go to the orbit eject program.
Okay, we're over at orbit eject now.
Okay, again make sure that you are sharing from the base approach program over here by changing this variable.
Changing the higher orbit.
The higher, exactly.
Okay, so we want to change that to base approach. There we go. I'm going to hit projection again to get a more... Okay.
Okay, and you can say that it's almost, we have to make almost a full orbit until we get to the point that we need to eject, so we can time warp to the apoapsis and circularize the orbit.
Okay, so let me just explain, because your mouse movements, again, they're not showing up for some reason, but basically this green line is pointing to where we are at right now in our orbit, and obviously we're going to rotate, or we're going to orbit the planet, or the moon rather, counterclockwise, so the eject point isn't until we get all the way over here. So if we did not increase our apoapsis, or if we didn't circularize at apoapsis, we'd come around here and crash into the moon. So we need to come over here to apoapsis and circularize. If we were, quote unquote, lucky and our ejection point was perhaps here prior to apoapsis, then we wouldn't have to circularize. So let's go all the way over here to the APA. And as we get close to that point, we can come back out of time warp, and I guess we can use the IMFD circularization.
Yes, you can open up IMFD. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter. You're not going to lose the base approach program. But you could also open it on the right side, because we're not going to need it later anyway.
Okay, actually let's do that, because then we can see the apoapsis information on the left side. And we were in orbit eject. So here we can see how close we are to the apoapsis, whereas if we have the circularization program open over here, we can't actually see it. Does it give us our time to the apoapsis? I don't see that.
No, not here on this page. I don't remember if you can press mode and see it, but I don't think so, not on this page.
Okay, well, in either case, it doesn't really matter. Basically, just when we're at that bubble, about right now, then we'll circularize. And this will be a 14.5 delta V. Okay, that's done, and now we can warp time forward. Can we go all the way to the eject point, or is there anything else that we need to do?
No, this time we are not going to use the auto burn feature from the orbit eject program, because we want to set it up as a maneuver and use the map program to try and be a lot more precise about our arrival at Earth. So we can time warp up till we're about 1,200 seconds before the burn. Basically, because we can see the line of nodes here, After this line, can you see the mouse now?
Yes, I can.
After this line over here, we will get a prediction on the map program. So we can type warp until after we are after this line.
Okay. Let's go ahead and do that, and then actually, since we're coming up on 30 minutes here pretty close, we'll get over to this point, and then before we get into actually setting up the IMFD maneuver, we'll go ahead and end this part of the video and pick it up in the next part. That way we don't end up with a 1-hour video here.
Okay.
So we'll get over to this point, and then we'll just kind of bring up. So let me just understand though, does the map MFD program not work until after the line of nodes? Is there something specific about the timing there?
Yes, if you are very early before the actual burn that you're going to make, you do not get a good prediction, or sometimes you don't get a prediction at all
Okay, so we
in
need
the
to
map
be
program to be able.
within a
We
couple
do,
of thousand seconds.
yes.
All right, so let's go ahead and bring up the map MFD on this side just to kind of get situated. And yeah, again, we're really close to 30 minutes, so let me go ahead and end this part of the video here. And then when we come back, we're going to have quite a bit of tinkering to do with the IMFD variables. So if you like this part of the video, please do hit the like button and check the description down below for a link to Dimitris' YouTube page so you can check that out. He's got some pretty interesting videos up. And be sure to leave a comment and just to say thanks to him for taking the time for helping us all out. And I will see you in the next video.